It's not the right chop. It's not the right cut, Mum. That's too much fat.
Eavesdroppin.
Michelle, I see you.
Oh, I see you with my little eye.
I spy.
I spy.
Do you remember that game? God, it was tedious, wasn't it?
It was.
Oh, I hated it. Don't start playing that flipping game, I'd say to everybody. No, I can't bear it. Something beginning with G, what grass? Something beginning with R, what the road? I mean, what else can there be? Especially when you're driving through Australia. There's not much to look at.
R, red earth. That's it. That's all you got. D, dead kangaroo. Just like
Is that D or is it K?
it depends on how you're going to play the rules.
Right.
You know, it's one of those things. That's almost as bad as yellow car, which
What's
is
that one?
Well, it's the one that Andreas and I play. It's whenever you spot a yellow car, you have to hit the other person.
Oh, we played that game, didn't we? We were standing on a
We
bridge.
did.
But we
Yes.
didn't hit people. Somebody
We
won.
just shouted.
We all had a choice of car colour, and whoever had the winning, I think I chose silver, so I won.
You did. I think I had red.
Yeah.
I didn't win, but I had a red, what was it, red Ferrari
There
or
was a
something.
good
So I think
red
I
car.
had,
Just
I had
the
the
one.
best car.
Yeah, you had the best. You won best and fairest. Michelle, there's a lot of confused eavesdroppers out there right now.
I know.
They don't know what's going on unless they're
They don't even
regulars.
know who we are.
Who are we?
I'm Michelle.
But I'm Geordie.
And you are eavesdroppers and you are listening to Eavesdroppin, the comedy podcast.
And we like it. And actually, regarding the comedy, I'm not sure if it's been that funny recently. We've had a couple of dark stories. So here you go. Here's a little kazoo solo from me.
Where the
There you go,
hell
there's some comedy.
did that come out of a Christmas cracker?
No?
No. You actually
it
went out and
didn't.
purchased that with your hard-earned money?
No, I did not. I did not buy it. It was given to me.
Okay. I hope that was either a stocking stuffer or a joke gift.
I got it. It was before Christmas, Michelle. It was because the last day of our counselling course, my class, who I've become very close to, did a sing-along. So one of our members of the class brought his, what do you call that little guitar? The little guitar, what's it called?
ukulele?
I'm having a Menno moment. Ukulele. And then he handed out these wonderful...
Kazoos.
What do you call them? Kazoos.
Oh my God. This episode's going great, Geordie.
I'm not hungover. I'm not
At
hungover,
all.
nothing. I'm perfectly normal. But what's happened, listeners? I gave up the mushroom coffee. I thought, how much is this really helping me? Plus, I bought a new coffee machine that it doesn't work in. So I just thought, go back to the normal coffee. I'll be fine. Within weeks, Michelle, the memory retaining aspects of the Lion's Mane coffee have worn off. I don't remember my name.
Do you know what I think? With all that Patreon pennies, we might have to get you some.
Yes. Should we buy some more
Lion's
mushrooms?
Mane. Yeah, we're mushroom coffee for you.
Yeah.
We need you. We need you on your A game. On your M game. On your mushroom game.
My mushroom game. My husband was gifted twice with his own home-growing Lion's Mane mushroom kit. Once by me, once by my eldest son and his fiancée. Yes, so that's happening. We're going to be pumping out the Lion's Manes. I don't know how to turn them into a capsule. I suppose you could dry them and grind them up and then, I don't know, swallow them whole. I don't know. We'll find out.
Well, I will tell you, we currently have Lion's Mane mushrooms on the menu.
On the menu?
Yes, we do. It is for our vegetarian and vegan guests. We are currently making a Lion's Mane ceviche, but for the acid component of the ceviche, we are using sea buckthorn.
Oh, yes. That's lovely. We had some sea buckthorn at your restaurant.
Yes. It's absolutely delicious. The Lion's Mane is the hero. Obviously, it's alpine shrimp. It's the one for the others. But for me, it's a Lion's Mane.
Oh, and how's that to eat? Because it's quite hairy and shaggy.
Not ours.
Oh.
No, maybe it's a different variety.
The Lion's Mane is the variety.
But maybe it's a Swiss Lion's Mane or I mean, they are grown here. So I will take a photo. I will show you. You can tell me.
Did you look at it?
I watched them making it, yes.
Okay, so it's a shaggy, weird-looking...
No, it's a lovely white mushroom, which is, yes, a little bit sort of rough-looking, but I wouldn't say shaggy. That makes me think it's a different variety.
Of lion's mane.
Of lion's mane, yes, indeed.
Right, so we've established that you know your food somewhat.
And you know your mushies.
And that's about all we've established at this point in time. I will tell you something, though. I've had a listener write in with some fantastic recommendations.
Hit me.
Charlene.
Happy
Chappy. She got in touch to say Happy New Year.
Mummy Magzo.
Don't call her Mother Magzo. I don't think she likes it. It's Margaret.
Margaret.
She said, Happy New Year, Telerac, Motherland on iPlayer. We're rewatching it as it's so good. Now, I have recommended that to you privately in the past, and you've said...
Poo-poo, because I'm not a mother.
Therefore, you're not going to enjoy it because it's all about being a mother. Well,
yes.
You're wrong.
Well, I'm sure I'm wrong. But that brings me to another Telerac because...
Hang on, we haven't finished on this one yet.
Well, I've just got to jump in because otherwise I'll forget.
All right.
The main mother in that, the actress is...
Julia.
No, the other one.
What's her guts?
Anna Maxwell Martin or something.
Oh, yes. Her name is Julia in the show. Sorry.
Oh, is it?
Fucking hell.
Right.
Where are my mushrooms?
Well, last night Andreas said to me, why don't we watch this show? And she's in it. It's called Until I Kill You.
Yes, I've heard about that. Is it good?
Well, we only watched half of the first episode. I am gripped, and it's based on a true story. I even told Jen the Hen, you've got to watch this. And for our Australian listeners, ABC iView. You can watch it in Australia without doing anything naughty. So back to Motherland and Chappy Happy.
Motherland. So what do you think of Motherland? What do you say about it?
I haven't seen it. I didn't watch it.
Why not? Why did you not watch one of the funniest shows?
But I told you, because I thought it wouldn't apply to me because I'm not a mummy.
Okay, well, I was hoping for actually the more heated reaction that I've had from you in the past.
What did I say?
Because you've actually really been quite down on it before when I tried to recommend it to you and I gave up.
What did I say?
Well, I said to Charlene, I love Motherland and need to catch up on the Christmas episodes. Michelle poo-poos it, I said, because she doesn't have kids and thinks it will be dull for her. Wait until I mention it on air and hear the response. You heard it here first, but you let me down, Michelle.
Well, what was I meant to say?
I wanted you to really hook into it like you did last time. That stupid show. I don't give a fuck about that fucking show. Why would I want to watch that? That's about mothers and babies. I'm not interested in kids, you said. Something like that.
I don't think so, but...
It was similar to that.
I really think... I think you sound...
Very vitriolic.
You're making me sound like Baywit. I'm sure I just said, I'm not sure that's for me. But look, it's okay. You can...
I think most people agree that it's a really good show and
sure.
I need to catch up on it. She also came back and said This Way Up, which we've both watched with... What's her name? Aisling B. She's great, isn't she?
She is good. She is very good. And in fact, for anyone who is a patron and has managed to catch the January edition, I'm not going to say too much more than there is a show called Am I Being Unreasonable? Both you and I have seen that. And I was wondering when we were talking about that, where have I heard that before? And it's with...
We were talking about it on...
We were talking about it on the Patreon. But we have spoken about Am I Being Unreasonable because it's with Daisy May, whatever her name is.
Cooper.
I think that's all kind of a little bit similar-ish. These funny women who are doing great independent comedy.
Yes, which is also... There's another one. Oh, fuck me. What's her name? Sophie Dandinan or something like that. And she's done one called... I'll never remember.
Get those bloody mushrooms into you. Into your face.
It's a nightmare because I'm holding up Charlene's messages here because she's got more, but I'm not going to tell you about them because I want to watch them and then do a story on them. But she did send, after the Crop Circles episode, she sent something about a documentary, Absolute Documentaries, A Field Full of Secrets. She said, have a watch of that. It's really worth it. So I'm going to give it a watch. I'm going to send it to you to link up. That's about all I've got that I'm willing to tell you from Charlene presently.
Well, I have a telly-rec. So I was a fan of a series called The Split, and it's got that actress called Nicola Walker in it, The Split.
Oh, yes, The Split, yes.
It's got that lovely chap who was in the Doctor's Thingy Mangan. What's his name?
Stephen Mangan.
Stephen
in
Mangan
Green Wing.
in it. Yes, he's in it. And anyway, it's been off for quite some time, and they've done a special called The Split Barcelona.
Yes, I saw it advertised over Christmas.
Yes, I gave it a whirl, and I really enjoyed it. So I would recommend that.
Great.
I've had some more telerecs from Eavesdropper Steph.
Oh, yeah. What's she watching?
She said Squid Game 2.
Okay, so I want to watch the Squid Game 1 first.
Yes, please do that first. She, obviously, anyone who hasn't watched any Squid Game, start from the beginning, watch season 1, then watch season 2. And
it was a bit violent, you see. My daughter wanted to watch it. I think you were there and we tried to watch it.
Yes.
Up to a certain point where they shot all the old people in the face, and then we said, maybe not.
Yeah, it's quite violent. I have not watched season 2, but I'm so excited. And her other recommendation is Squid Game The Challenge.
What's that? The game show?
It's real people from all over the world. There's some Aussies in it. It's a real-life Squid Game, but you don't die.
No, thank God.
You just get the ink pack that you've got explodes, so it shows that you're dead, but you don't really die. And she said it is absolutely amazing, and she, in fact, wants to apply for it herself.
Oh, wow.
So good luck.
Good luck.
Eavesdropper Steph.
Meanwhile,
we'd love to watch you.
We're still watching The Traitors. Now, listen, I'm moving away from tele-recommendations right now because Tamira the Modern Mystic has been in touch as of today, this very moment. She got in touch. She actually sent me a video, as she sometimes does, which is relating to my story today. So I'll return to that. And it was because of her I did the crop circles as well. She's saying, because we kind of say, where are you, Tamira? We haven't heard from you. Well, she is busy listening in the background. She said she still loves the podcast and we're the highlight of her week and she loves us so much.
Oh,
Michelle, she sent you a little message.
Oh.
She said, I know Michelle has been through so much with Jen almost transitioning. I have to say you are both so magical and thank you for the mentions.
Oh, bless you. Thank you so much, Tamira. And I will say, every time something from you drops in the inbox,
yes,
it's pertinent. It's like, I just
yeah.
needed to see that little tidbit or whatever it is. So thank you. Thank you so much.
Hang on a second here, because this is interesting. I hope to contribute more as your resident modern mystic. I had a couple book in last year, well-known comedians. I have to look up their names. Anyway, they found me through the guest show I did years back with us, and they love us. Oh. Who are they, Tamira?
Who are they?
You are amazing and really need to speak soon. Lots of love. I think they must be...
the middle-aged ladies.
Are they the midlifers? Yes.
The midlifers. Oh,
yes.
bless
Hi,
them.
ladies. We love
Hi,
you too.
Ladies. Oh, aren't they wonderful? Well, speaking of midlifers, and I'm not going to say that this is just for midlifers. In fact, I think this applies to all ages. You know how I talked about the tea bags the other week?
Tea bags?
And I was horrified that we're all drinking microplastics
No,
with our tea bags.
I just had a cup of tea with my ball.
Well done. I'm glad you're
Thank
sucking
you.
on a ball. Now, I want to tell you there's a new skincare hack going viral on TikTok. It's quite vile.
Oh.
Apparently, the new big thing is to put beef fat on your skin.
No, I won't be doing that.
No. And it's a thing. Now, look, I know that there are some skincare products out there where beef tallow or beef fat is part of the ingredients. But I will have to say, going all in and just scooping up a bit of that fat, maybe off your mum's chops or whatever it was.
Not off your mum's chops. If they're excreting that much fat, Mum, I think it's not the right chop. It's not the right cut, Mum. That's too much fat.
It is too much fat. And also, don't put that fucking thing on your face.
Don't put it on your face.
Don't put it on your face because it's going to clog the pores, ladies.
Yes,
clog
have animal
the
products
pores.
within.
I know. Don't do it.
I'm often worried about things because of an episode that we did about...
Yes, I know what you're going to say.
The
what,
BSE,
Mad Cow?
Mad Cow, yeah. Ever since then, I'm worried about vaccinations. I'm worried about calf embryos being in vaccinations. I'm worried about my bovine-based, even though it's grass-fed collagen that I take, and that's why I've got such lovely skin. One of the reasons, anyway.
I won't really do any of that as a vegetarian.
No, because you're vegetarian.
I'm vegetarian, and I definitely won't be putting fucking beef fat on my face.
Well, I think it'll just be, what's her name?
Which one?
Oh, God, it's all gone wrong for me today. She's always putting the sperm on her face and the baby penises and things like that. Kate Blanchett.
Oh, yes. The baby penis. Yes, okay. Well, I won't be doing any of that. And no, sir, I'll be sticking with the Veleda.
Yes, keep it natural. Keep it natural. Don't put shit on your face.
And another thing I did come across in the news, I couldn't go past this headline. It said that scientists identify possible reason why some women don't know when to stop boozing.
Oh, do tell.
Well, apparently after doing some tests on mice, which first of all is horrific because I'm against animal testing. Yeah. And secondly, can you imagine those poor little drunk mice? They don't know what the fuck is going on.
Oh.
After feeding booze to these poor unsuspecting mice, scientists in America found that the mice drank more alcohol on days when their levels of estrogen were high, rather than when low. So basically, finding that estrogen, appeared to boost your desire for more booze. So if you're high in estrogen, you're going to be out there binge drinking.
Wow.
And they were surprised by how quickly the estrogen appeared to have an effect. It basically triggered binge drinking within minutes with these poor little mice.
Kind of get it, though.
So back off the booze if you're in that part of your cycle, if you don't want to be knocking them back.
Okay. Great tips for life, Michelle. Going back to Tamira.
Yes.
She sent me a video of somebody talking about the hot new podcast, which I have listened mostly to, not completely, because I don't have all the time in the world. And the only reason why I'm listening to it or why I'm aware of it, and it's zeitgeisty, Michelle, it's happening right now. It's the #1 podcast right now. It's because we decided to do an episode on ESP Telepathy, and I was directed to this podcast, which has gone straight to the top of the charts, knocking off Joe Rogan.
Good.
It's called the Telepathy Tapes.
Yes, I've seen it all over Apple. It's all over Apple Podcasts. It's got that lovely pink cover, retro tape on the artwork. Fantastic. And I nearly listened to it, and I didn't.
Thank God you didn't. Well, I won't tell you all about it because I haven't seen it all yet, but I'll tell you what I know, which I found absolutely fascinating. It's a 10-part series looking into claims that some nonverbal autistic children are able to communicate with their parents and others via telepathy. It's made by a documentary filmmaker called Ky Dickens. Love that name. She's the host, a self-confessed science nerd, and she became interested in the subject after listening to another podcast which featured an interview with a neuroscientist called Dr. Diane Hennessy Powell. They were discussing the telepathy and nonverbal autistic link on a podcast called Cosmos in You. For her own documentary and accompanying podcast that she's now made, which is the Telepathy Tapes, Ky Dickens interviews parents who are convinced their children can read their minds and collaborates with that very same psychologist she heard in the first podcast, Dr. Diane Hennessy. They run experiments, and Ky goes out of her way to make it truly fair and non-cheatable.
Okay.
She goes out and she buys all the testing equipment. She employs assistants and camera people who have nothing to do with or any interest in this particular subject matter. They're skeptics usually. She makes sure that all the tests are completely watertight. And all of the tests kind of involve a twist on the same riff, which is basically where a parent silently focuses on randomly selected numbers or words while their children attempt to guess them. And in the first episode, there's one child called Mia. She's 12 years old, non-verbal autistic girl who was diagnosed age 2, who demonstrates a flawless success rate, accurately identifying every single word, every single number. And then she announced using her letterboard, because this is how she communicates, Michelle. This girl is severely autistic to the point where she can't communicate without this letterboard. She probably can't move much. I haven't seen the documentary. It's behind a paywall. But, she's not able to move as well. But she also said that she has memories of being an embryo and remembers always being able to hear her mother's thoughts even then.
Wow. I wonder, when you say about these experiments being
bet you've got
watertight,
lots of questions.
I do.
Yes.
Can they see each other?
No, there's a mindfold. What they call a mindfold. Blindfold, mindfold, whatever. Yep, they've got mindfolds, blindfolds. But the problem is these letterboards are controversial because in order to use them, a lot of these children haven't got the ability, the fine motor skills to use them properly. They need guidance. So are they being pushed? But the thing is, in these experiments, they're not being pushed. So there's no mirrors, there's no TVs, there's no flat screens, and it's every single time. Like the mother hasn't even finished, like she's looking at the thing and the kid's already writing it out. They are reading their minds. I am convinced of it. But there are obviously a lot of people who don't believe it. And also, Mia said she's unable to read her dad's thoughts because she said, you need to believe it can be done for it to happen. I'm kind of paraphrasing her there.
Yeah.
Mia also experiences what scientists called synesthesia, where numbers spark colours in her mind. I think we've spoken about that before on this podcast. But that's just the beginning. Mia also hates sleeping with the light off because there are people around that nobody else can see but Mia.
Oh my God. Okay.
Basically ghosts.
She's really in tune. Really in tune.
Yes.
If this is...
Well, this is the thing. They see so many of these children and people and do tests on so many of them. They've all got amazing stories. And it does raise a fascinating question, Michelle. What if certain neurological differences, like those found in autism, aren't just different wiring, but rather an enhanced sensitivity to frequencies of reality that most people's brains just filter out? Think of it like a radio. Most of us are tuned in to a narrow band of stations, but some minds might naturally pick up broadcasts from channels we didn't even know existed.
A different sense, maybe.
Yes, or using different senses to what neurotypical people would be using. And talking of radio signals, there was a story that they tell in the podcast, which is fascinating. It's about the actor and comedian Lucille Ball. I love Lucy. Do you remember that?
Yes.
What a great show. She was funny. After having had dental work in 1942, Lucille Ball had some temporary fillings put in her teeth, and they were filled with radioactive material because back in the day, that's what they did. In the 40s, they put that shit in their faces. As Lucy drove home from the dentist's office, she began hearing music. It was a song she recognized. And she checked her car radio. It was turned off. She couldn't believe it. Where's this music coming from? No other cars around. It wasn't that. Eventually, she figured out it was coming from her mouth.
What? So her fillings were picking up a new frequency?
Pretty much.
Okay.
Yeah. She went back to work the next day and she told this to Buster Keaton, who clearly she was working with. And he said, well, where were you? She told him whereabouts she was on the highway. And he said, well, you were driving past the radio station. You picked up the broadcast. A few days later, she heard a tapping sound coming from her mouth, like that. And she ascertained, after a while of confusion, she was picking up broadcasts from a Japanese spy transmission, and she reported it to the FBI, and remarkably, several days later, they discovered there actually was a Japanese radio transmitter hidden in the broadcasting coded messages.
Wow.
Yes.
Okay, so that's not so much ESP, but...
Lucy's war effort. No, it's not ESP, but it's about the radio transmission,
Yes.
which is kind of what they look at in this podcast.
Wow.
The scientific explanation suggests her dental fillings may have behaved like a crude crystal radio receiver, and the combination of the metallic filling material and the moist environment in her mouth could have created a semiconductor effect, basically turning her dental work into an accidental radio antenna. But this raises larger questions. If a simple dental filling can tune into radio frequencies, what other signals might our bodies be capable of receiving under the right conditions? Are there people whose natural neurological makeup might act as similar receivers for frequencies or phenomena that we don't yet understand?
Yes, I think anything like that is possible because we don't understand it and we haven't yet explored it. So, of course, I think we all have to have an open mind.
I agree with you, Michelle. We're on the same page. The story of Lucy's musical teeth became a peculiar footnote in World War II history, but it also serves as a compelling example of how the human body might interact with electromagnetic frequencies in ways we're only beginning to understand. Think about how children experience the world. They notice everything. every little detail, every sensation. But as we grow up, our brains learn to filter out what's considered unnecessary information to help us function in everyday life. And what if some autistic minds keep that original unfiltered connection to the world, while the rest of us are offloading all of the unnecessary shit so we don't get bogged down? They are capable of tuning into much broader ranges of frequencies and sensations. And then these abilities come to the forefront. That's what I'm thinking. It's just an idea.
Well, I know for a fact that if I haven't used something in my brain, it's gone.
Yeah,
it's
clearly.
in the bin. The hard drives are
As
empty.
was demonstrated just now with me. Hard drive is empty.
Hard drive.
Too many tabs are
Too
open.
many tabs are open. It's shut down, and I've had to bin that information to make way for new information. Like, if it doesn't get used,
More
it's
shit
gone.
TV shows. When someone with autism sees colours around numbers, for example, or senses things that others can't, we might call these things symptoms, but maybe they're actually experiencing a more complete version of reality, one that the rest of us have learned to tune out because it would be too much.
Or that we were never gifted with.
I don't know. I think the idea is that it's there for us all, but I'll get onto that. Because maybe some minds are just better equipped at detecting the hidden layers of reality alongside what we already know. Who knows? This is all very new for me. But these experiments, going back to her experiments, Ky and the doctor, they were done for the podcast. They were 100% accurate, like I said. But despite this, Ky was told the scientific community would never accept the experiments as being worth using. So they're not going to use her experiments, basically, to prove that this is a thing. And this is down to many factors. Like I said before, doubts regarding the reliability of the experiments, by unconscious cueing by the parent, possibly. They might unintentionally sway their children's responses through slight gestures or physical contact. And some autistic kids often need touch to help them learn new things, to offer them emotional and physical support. And also, like I said, the communication boards, otherwise known as facilitated communication or the rapid prompting method or spelling, these are all names for the same thing, they need to be guided sometimes. So there have been some controversial things about that. The basic idea about these communication boards is that the non-speakers might struggle with fine motor skills needed to use them.
Yeah.
But with physical support, like somebody steadying their hand or their elbow, they can then point at the letters or type out what they want to say. And advocates for the letterboards compare it to using a cane if you have wobbly ankles or something, or can't quite walk very well. So it's basically an assisted communication.
Yes, but is there another human assisting? Because
this is the thing.
As soon as you get another human involved, it's like a seance.
Well, that's what I was going to say. It might appear like a Ouija board in some circumstances where somebody's pushing the glass. Like I said, I haven't seen the documentary. It's behind the paywall. But I do think that in the podcast that I listened to, some kids are more verbal or more capable of movement than others.
Right.
So I think she looked at a varying demographic. And to make these tests worthwhile, like I said, she went out of her way to make sure there was no cheating. So I was happy with listening to it. Like I said, there was a mindfold or a blindfold. They were behind a screen, away from the parents, sometimes in other rooms. And the random word generators would also show up things like pictures from books never seen before, or a 4 or 5 digit number. All of the test subjects responded with accuracy every time. One mother, Manisha, viewed pictures. Now, this was a fun one to listen to. She was viewing pictures that didn't make any sense to her mind when she was looking at them. She's like, what's this? Said it looked like some splodges of ketchup and mayonnaise and mustard. But when Akil read her mind, he described it in a way that made sense to everybody else, her son Akil. Mm-hmm. He basically interpreted it as a food fight. And then everyone went, that's what it is.
Right.
When he said,
Okay.
So Manisha and Akil were quite interesting. They were in episode 2. She's an Indian woman and her husband. They moved to the United States for a better life. They had Akil in the States. He was nonverbal autistic, probably about 18 months old. He was diagnosed. He's now in his 20s. She runs Akil Autism Foundation. She's quite prolific in the whole autistic world. And she has also enabled her son to experience life as independently as possible. And like most of the other parents in the documentary, she ignored the advice of professionals who were telling them that their child was incapable of much thought, much learning capacity, and certainly not quality of life. But once many of these kids got their hands on these communication boards, Michelle, with the supported typing, their whole world opened up. TED Talks were written, books were written, everything. People were going to university. One woman, Katie, said of her 21-year-old son, Houston, when he got his board, up to that point he was nonverbal, never stopped moving, typed immediately the first words, "I'm in here." It was heartbreaking.
That is chilling.
But as for the mind reading, some parents believe it's a merging of consciousness. For example, Akil doesn't just interpret thoughts, he also seems to connect with his mother's awareness, perceiving aspects of her experiences without being there physically. Once she went upstairs because she was watching a movie, for example, and she thought he'd really enjoy watching it. So she ran upstairs to say, "Oh, you'd really like this film." And he said, "Oh, basically I can tell you what's going on in it. Here's the plot line." Because he was aware of it, because she was aware of it.
I don't know how I feel about this. Your mind is never private.
There'll be no surprises. There'll be no Santa for these kids. And sometimes he'd be at school and he'd type her a message saying, "You're in Target," when she's shopping. Yeah. And you won't be surprised to hear either that Akil is also in touch with their ancestors. And he has told his mum from when he was small that her mother was often in the room with them when he was a child.
That's nice, though. I like that.
It is. Akil said through his communication board, "In my world," he said this to Ky, "in my world we don't speak, we use our minds to communicate," basically, which made Ky wonder, who's we? When Ky asked if Akil had met other nonverbal people and spoken with them, he typed out yes enthusiastically. Back to Katie from Georgia with her son Houston, I just mentioned before. She said that Houston participates in something called the Talk on the Hill, which is something like a CB radio chat with a bunch of truckers, except they're all from the autistic communities. 10-4, little buddy. This is Black Stump. Reading you, Black Stump. This is Sundowner. Over. Do you remember that?
Of course. Oh, g'day, this is Black Betty. Damn. My best friend had a CB radio. She lived on a farm.
And you'd be talking to foul-mouthed truckers when you're 10 years old or something.
Oh, yeah. And we'd be doing all sorts of stupid things and screaming and hooting.
Hoot? What a hoot. But these nonverbal kids, they all get together simultaneously to hack into their own private messenger board. From all over the world they come, Michelle, through their minds at a place on what we would call the astral plane, in a place they call the hill.
Right.
Believe it or not. This is where things get really freaky. One Reddit user called WB Fraser Music, who is a self-confessed psychonaut, posted on the astral projections page, right? He got interested in this, and he's obviously an astral projector, and it's very similar to the thing that Tamira sent me earlier. He decided he wanted to gain entrance to the hill.
Okay.
Through transcendental meditation and astral travel. He says, "It's very similar to the waiting area I often find myself in when entering the non-physical. It's a peaceful white void filled with coloured orbs of light representing entities who I presume are the participants. Well, they were all very friendly, very surprised to see me, curious as to why I was there and pleased. I asked them what they do there and they exchange information, talk to each other and just hang out. They shared what it's like to be non-speaking autist by allowing me to step into one of their shoes." Weird. "And I can only describe it as being in a state halfway between physical reality and the astral, where the physical body takes a lot of effort and energy to respond, and it is really a burden, which seems from the outside to non-autists as a mental handicap. In reality, the consciousness inside is very much awake and aware, just finding it difficult to relate to the physical world they find themselves encumbered with. They asked me to raise awareness of this and help change perceptions towards them. They also said big changes to our perceptions of reality are coming." Houston later explains to Ky that all objects have energy, good and bad, and those with severe autism can pick up on a greater spectrum of wavelengths. The talk on the hill could mean that what we interpret as telepathic ability is actually an enhanced sensitivity to the natural frequencies that we all emit.
Right.
I'm wondering. So I haven't listened to the rest of the podcast, Michelle. And like I said, I haven't watched the documentary because it costs money. But suffice to say, the experts are basically rolling their eyes at the idea of these nonverbal kids being telepathic. It's a classic case of if we can't measure it in a lab, then it doesn't exist. It's not true.
Yeah, that's bullshit. Look, I find that really interesting because we feel that our existence is the way that it should be. You know, we have healthy bodies, we have minds that function, but these non-verbal autistic subjects who are subjects of this telepathy tapes, and I'm fascinated by it. I can't wait to go and listen to the documentary. They have no other way to communicate. So this is, for them, the normal. So you're talking about we filter out things that we don't need. Well, there's nothing for them to filter out because they can't. This is all they've got. So they are enhancing what they've got. And in fact, I find it endlessly fascinating that they go inwards into energy, which is what most people poo-poo, I would say.
Exactly.
Very interesting.
And what's really important is that if the parents had listened to the skeptics, the experts, their kids would still be locked in their own bodies with no way to tell anyone what was going on in their minds.
Yeah.
These kids are wide open. And instead of asking whether telepathy is real, perhaps we should be asking ourselves what we might be missing out on. Because if we'd stuck to what science already understood back in the day, we'd still think that the world was flat. Like you said, things change. Things are coming. Things are new. We've got to enhance and change with it. And it made me think, what if the people who seem the most different from what we call normal are the ones seeing the world as it actually is in all its weird and wonderful frequency-filled glory?
Well, maybe. Maybe we're the neurodiverse.
We're not seeing it all. We need to remember that there's more to this world than what we can stick under a microscope. And if these parents hadn't done that, they would never have heard their children's voices at all.
It's amazing.
Eavesdroppin'.
There were experiments conducted by a guy who was some kind of Nobel Prize winner. I will put a link to it because I read about it for this week's episode, but I did not do my story on it. But he did a lot of experiments on ESP that did get published in a very well-regarded peer-reviewed publication. And it's so controversial that people just do not want to believe that his experiments are true because it opens up too much.
Too mind-blowing.
Yes, and people just need to put a lid on it.
It's a bit like aliens.
A little bit. But also, you were talking about astral projection, and there is something that I did come across. It's something we've talked about before on the podcast.
Yeah.
It is about a US Army unit called Project Stargate, established back in 1977. And they were trying to utilize things like remote viewing, telepathy, psychokinesis, basically to be used as tools and weapons in warfare. So what the US government wanted to do with Project Stargate is what I just want to be saying. Stargate was to create mind-reading spies who could infiltrate the minds of enemies and find out, intel and secrets. I mean, it actually sounds so far-fetched that it's hard to believe that this is something that the US government pumped money into, but it's true. It happened. Men and women who claimed to have ESP were recruited to try and help the US government uncover military and domestic intelligence secrets. And as part of Project Stargate, a report called Mars Exploration, May 22, 1984, looks at how the CIA used astral projection, which is where you've already talked about it, but where a person's spirit is meant to travel through the astral plane to basically anywhere in time and space. So the CIA used astral projection to transport a subject to Mars, approximately in 1 million years BC.
Right.
So the participants in this study were exposed to weird music and binaural beats to put them into an altered state of consciousness, which is then meant to increase any psychic abilities. And then the subject was transported to the planet Mars during the specific year.
Wow.
And asked to say what they saw.
Yeah.
And it was reported back that there was an oblique view of a pyramid and a very large road. The subject then talked about seeing a population of very large people searching for, quote, a new place to live because their environment was corrupted.
Corrupted?
Yeah, it's really weird. Now, Project Stargate was shut down in 1995, but during the 10 plus years it was going, psychics were involved in loads of military operations. And, we have talked about this, including trying to locate hostages kidnapped by Islamic terrorist groups. They were also brought in to try and find domestic criminals. And this strange document about Mars was declassified in 2017. And then it was, spread all around on the internet. But apparently it doesn't really say that much, but it does begin with, the method of site acquisition was a sealed envelope coupled with geometric coordinates. So in this envelope with the coordinates, it was given to the subject before the astral projection, but it was not opened until afterward.
So they didn't know how to get there.
Well,
I guess if you're an astral traveller, you do know how to get places, because this bloke that I just said and read it,
yeah,
he made his way into the hill, and also the person in the video that Tamira sent me made their way to the hill and asked permission to enter.
So I think if you know where you want to go, you can get there. So I don't really understand about this envelope, but they said inside this envelope was a small card that said the planet Mars and the time of interest was approximately 1 million BC. Okay, which was read out to the subject by the person doing the experiment. Okay, so they knew about it. The astral projector was asked to focus their attention on 40.89 degrees north, 9.55 degrees west. I tell you, if someone said that to me, I'd be like,
you wouldn't have a
what
clue.
The fuck?
No.
I don't even know north, south, east,
Where's
and
my
west.
astral compass?
I know.
And somebody please astrally tell me how to read an astral compass.
Yeah. These people did it, and then they were like, oh, I'm getting this view of a pyramid. And then they continued to say that this pyramid was ochre coloured, and it went from yellow to deep orange to brown. They saw shadows of very tall, thin people wearing strange outfits.
Wow.
And then the astral projector moved to a place where a storm was raging through Mars and people were using the giant pyramids for shelter. They just said there were no furnishings in there. Everything was functional. There was a place for sleeping. And then he said it's not sleeping, it's hibernation.
What?
Yeah. They were sleeping through the storms. And these people, they were wearing like silk, but it was all figure hugging. And they said that they were an ancient people who were dying and that they were looking for a way to survive, but they couldn't. So they were looking for another place to live. And then this person astral projected into a new place where this group went to live. And it was some crazy place with volcanoes and gas pockets and strange plants. And it was very different to the other place on Mars. Apparently, the experiment person brought the subject back and it was all kind of recorded. So my question to you, after hearing about these kids going to the hill, were they really seeing life on Mars back in 1 million BC, or was it all just hoaxy?
I don't bloody know, do I?
Well, I don't know either, because it's really...
Don't ask me.
I know, it's just a strange thing. I think the people believed that they were on an astral plane and saw something, but having not done it myself, I have absolutely no clue.
Well, I can't wait for my next sound bath.
Oh my God, we never even explored that. How was your gong? Did you feel cleansed? Rejuvenated?
I did, and I'm going again. I'm addicted. I bloody loved it. I thought I'd fidget all the way through, and I did do some fidgeting, and I was warm, even though I was getting rained on a little bit because there was a crack in the barn ceiling and it was raining through that.
I would hate that.
But I was cozy. I was up to my neck in duvets on my acupressure and my yoga mat, which was enough, and a, memory foam pillow, hot water bottle that was the length of my body, 2 pairs of really warm socks, jumper, tracksuit, everything. Cashmere beanie pulled down over my eyes. Perfect.
Wow.
And I was in the liminal space. I went there. I saw the things you were supposed to see. I got the messages. It was brilliant. Can't remember them, though.
Oh, my God. That sounds amazing. Well, look, I know that this will come as slightly off topic here, but when I was looking at ESP-related things for this week's app, I came across an article from 2018 in the Express with a headline that read, "End of crime? Faces of criminals can now be harvested from brains of their victims."
Oh, my God.
And I was like, what the hell? So I don't even know how that could be possible, to read the human mind and then create pictures from a brain.
No.
But apparently, neuroscientists at the University of Toronto use EEG monitors. And I looked up exactly what an EEG is, and it's an electroencephalogram. It's a test that measures electrical activity in the brain, basically a brain scanner. Neuroscientists use EEG to create images of human faces from the actual thought processes of the subject hooked up to the EEG monitor.
My God.
And I saw the picture in the paper. It's an actual face.
Oh.
So what they're proposing is that, well, basically the way it works is when humans see something, our brains create a mental percept, which means that our brains create a mental impression of the thing we are seeing. These clever scientists in Canada reckon they can capture percepts using EEG and get an actual illustration of what's happening in the brain during this process. The test subjects get hooked up to EEG equipment and they're then shown images of faces. Their brain activity is recorded, and then that is used to digitally recreate the image in the subject's mind using a technique that is based on machine learning algorithms.
Wow.
Yeah. They're reconstructing images of faces from people's brains using EEG.
That's crazy.
I find this wild and slightly terrifying because I think this opens a whole can of worms, both good and
What
bad.
if they get it wrong?
Yes, this is it. If people can literally get pictures from your brain activity.
That's privacy gone another level too far, isn't it? Like invasion of privacy.
Absolutely. And I think in a very real sense, this is mind reading. And I thought that the whole eradication of cash spelled the end of privacy. But like you said, this is a whole new level because it means the personal, private, subjective content of our mind, it's no longer ours and ours alone.
Plumbed.
Yep. Because this machine provides a way to not only access the content of our perception, but also memories and imagination that can be also be shared with others in a really visual way.
That's really frightening because that's yours. It should be yours.
Yes.
You can't do that to people's thoughts. I don't like it.
But these, non-verbal autistic kids are doing that to their parents.
They are. You're right.
So when you were saying that, I thought, fuck, man, that's one way to do it. And there's another way that they're working on. And like I said, this article was from 2018. Imagine how far they've come. Now they've got AI.
Yeah.
I think they're looking at this in a way of, somebody gets mugged and they're so traumatized they can't remember anything, but hook them up to an EEG and they can give, well, not even they, the machine can give you an e-fit of the person that mugged them.
Oh, I don't like it. It makes me feel very uncomfortable.
Yes. Look, I do get that there could be very positive applications for something like this and helping people who are nonverbal to communicate.
Sure.
It could be massively helpful for police who are looking for, eyewitnesses because, no longer do you have to describe someone, they've got blonde hair. Well, actually, it was light brown. Or, I don't know, it looked like they had blue eyes. Well, actually, it was green. They can just get a picture.
You've just described me, Michelle. So this is what I'm worried about. I've got green eyes and blonde hair. I'm worried that that's going to happen to me. Then I'm going to get hauled in and then I'm going to get chucked in the slammer for something I didn't do.
But that's it. Who says that the picture in your mind is correct?
Yeah.
We all get things mixed up. Why?
Sure do.
Who says that couldn't happen and then this picture can't get spat out of this machine?
Yeah.
And it's wrong. I think it's fucking scary because the researchers are now investigating the possibilities of capturing detailed memories and images conjured up purely out of the subject's imagination, which again could be taken as fact. I just find it fucking scary. It's literal mind reading, not guesswork or trickery like, Daryl Bam kind of stuff, but an actual machine. Not sure about that. Not sure that I want that for our future. But it's happening.
I mean, all change is scary, isn't it? We should embrace it. We should make friends with AI and all that kind of thing. But I'm not quite sure how this can be rolled out in a safe way. Bit worrying.
Imagine you have it put on against your will.
Well, exactly. When does it become no longer your choice?
Yes. Where are the ethics of all of this? And so the last thing I'll tell you about is something that you probably will have heard of, but I'm fascinated by. They're called Zener cards, or Zener cards, and they're used for ESP. They're a pack of 25 cards. They were invented by a guy called Zener, I don't know, in the early 1930s, specifically so he could conduct ESP experiments. So, 25 cards in total. There are 5 symbols repeated 5 times. And the 5 symbols are a hollow circle, a plus sign, 3 vertical wavy lines, a hollow square, and a hollow 5-pointed star. The way they're used to test ESP is the experimenter picks up a card in a shuffled pack. They, look at the card and record the answer of the person being tested, who would then guess which of the 5 designs is on the card. So the experiment continues until all the cards in the pack are used. Now, they say when this was all happening in the 1930s, they were like, oh, this is a revolution because, people were getting these cards and all of this stuff massively correct. A little bit like what you were saying, except not as much of a success rate, but enough for people to think, this is mind reading, this is ESP.
Yeah.
But when I asked you earlier about could the nonverbal autistic subject see the person who they were meant to be mind reading, and you said no. Well, in the early days, yes, you could. And they realised that there were a lot of visual clues being given.
Subliminal
yes.
cues.
And
yeah.
also, if you know the person, I think there are a lot of ingrained communications that only you know because you've grown up with that person.
And we can communicate without words, even though we don't know that we're doing it.
Exactly. Like a little squint of an eye might mean, oh, mum's pissed off with me, or,
Yeah.
but no one else will see it, but you know what all of these visual things are.
Yeah.
So there are a lot of flaws with these Zener cards and the way that it was being tested back in the day. Because I also think you can count the cards. You
Right.
could be like, okay, I know there's
a
25.
certain amount.
Yeah, and I think you can cheat, you can shuffle badly. I think in some ways it's a game of odds and chance, but I'd like to do it with you one day and see if we
Let's
have any
try.
ESP. I will tell you that probability predicts that test results for a test of 25 questions with 5 possible answers on a chance level, 79.3% of people will get between 3 and 7 correct out of 25. So that's just probability. 10.9% will get 8 or more correct. One person in 73,700 will get 15 or more correct. One person in 5.16 billion will get 20 or more correct. And one person in 298 quadrillion will get all 25 correct. The odds are not with you for you to get all 25 correct unless there really is something else going on. I find that really fascinating. And over the years, there's been a lot of people doing these Zener cards and a lot of testing. And give or take, they have come to the conclusion that it is chance. Most people get between 3 and 7 correct, which is no higher than chance. And there's no ESP really going on.
Yeah. It's not like the cameraman who was doing the documentary for Ky Dickens, after seeing a couple of these things in a row, smashing out these experiments and getting them so right, saying, do I have to believe in God now?
What?
He was that shook by what he saw. He believed what he saw to the point where he was like, what is this witchcraft? Is God real?
Because only 1 in 298 quadrillion are going to get all 25 correct. And from what you're saying, these kids or these nonverbal autistic subjects...
We're getting it right every single time. Every single time.
They are that 1 in 298 quadrillion.
Yeah. But it wasn't Zener cards or Zener cards or whatever.
No.
It wasn't those. And I know the cards you're talking about. It wasn't that. It was all randomly generated. And sometimes it was source material that no one had ever clapped eyes on before.
Right.
Things that her uncle had made, that kind of thing.
Which is even more outrageous when you think about it, because it's not just a wavy line.
It's not in the collective consciousness. Yeah.
No.
A star.
Okay, well, I'm really keen to listen to 10-part podcast. I need to get...
Yeah.
I mean, I'm going to have a very clean
There are
house
other
by the...
Podcasts.
There are other...
Yes.
I'm going to have a very clean house because I always pop a podcast on when I'm cleaning. So I'm going to have... What, are they an hour long each?
No.
No?
About 30 minutes, 40 minutes.
Oh, even better.
Yeah.
You can smash through those. Well, thank you so much, Geordie, for your amazing look at that. It's massively thought-provoking. And if it's true, this opens up a whole different way of viewing the world that I think will really shake a lot of people.
Well, exactly. And that's why I think everybody should listen to the podcast and make up your own mind. But I really do think that it's compelling. I'm only 4 episodes in, mind you.
All right.
But I am already
we'll
compelled.
We'll see what they say
to
at
believe.
the end.
Well, I think there's going to be another series, so I think it's definitely going ahead with the whole telepathy is real.
Well, I mean, from what you're saying, for these subjects, yeah, fuck yeah, it's real. And I love this idea of meeting on the hill. I want to go on the hill.
Yeah, it's amazing, isn't it? I don't know if I've got time for going on the hill. It sounds like a lot of noise, a lot of people there. I think it would be too much for me.
Maybe.
Mentally. I wonder if you can tell what I'm thinking right now, though, Michelle.
I'm thinking you've got 3 things to say.
And do you know what those things are?
It could start with wherever you are.
Whatever you do.
Just
keep
ESP Eavesdroppin.
Eavesdroppin.